Lyra crouched among the broken walls of her city, her sharp eyes scanning the ruins. The wind carried the smell of ash and burned metal. She had walked these streets 100 times since the attack, yet every time, the destruction seemed new, like a wound that would never heal. Her people had trusted someone once, a figure who promised protection, a promise that now lay in pieces, just like the buildings around her. The sun of the dying planet barely reached through the thick clouds, casting a gray light over everything. Lyra pulled her cloak tighter around her thin frame, feeling the cold cut through her skin. Hunger tugged at her stomach, but she ignored it. Survival came first. She had learned the hard way that food could wait, but danger could not. From the shadows, she heard a low creaking noise. Instinct made her freeze. Every nerve in her body screamed that someone was near. Slowly, she turned her head, eyes narrowing. There, in the distance, a figure moved among the debris. It was not like the soldiers of the Syndicate, who wore their black armor and carried heavy weapons. This figure was smaller, unarmed, and curious, moving with a cautious confidence. Lyra considered retreating. Humans were not unknown in her world, but they were rare. Most of them had come to trade or to explore, and some had joined the Syndicate for power. She could not know what this one wanted, but something in the way he moved made her pause. He did not rush. He did not attack. He was careful, almost respectful of the ruins around him. The human noticed her then, stopping suddenly. He raised his hand slightly, showing he meant no harm. Lyra studied him for a long moment. His hair was dark, his skin pale in the dim light. His clothes were torn and dusty, but they were clean enough to show he was not a soldier. Something about him seemed different. He seemed ordinary, and yet he carried an air of calm that was unusual in strangers here. Lyra stepped out from behind a broken wall. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice sharp, but not loud. The human tilted his head. "I'm Ethan," he said. "I'm just passing through. I didn't mean to intrude. I wanted. I'm in a quarter. I would something. Generation." Lyra's eyes flicked to the weapons hidden under his coat. There were none. That was unusual. Most travelers carried something for defense, even on a peaceful mission. She relaxed slightly but did not lower her guard. "This is not a safe place for humans," she said. "Why are you here?" Ethan shrugged. "I explore. I fix things. Sometimes I find problems, sometimes solutions. Right now, I guess I found a problem." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "You don't know what you've found. This city is under Syndicate control. They killed my people, and they will kill anyone they find here. You should leave." We. Ethan looked around at the ruined streets. "I'm not here to fight. I just want to see it. Understand it. I didn't come to hurt anyone." Lyra considered him. She had learned not to trust anyone too quickly. People promised many things, but most promises were broken. But this human, Ethan, seemed different. There was no arrogance, no cruelty, just curiosity. That could be dangerous, but it could also be useful. She made a decision. "I don't trust humans easily," she said. "But you might be useful. Follow me, but stay quiet, and don't touch anything." Ethan nodded. "Understood." They moved through the ruins together. Lyra led him along narrow alleys and across broken bridges. She kept watch, her senses alert for any sign of the Syndicate. She did not speak much. Words were expensive here, and trust was cheaper if you earned it slowly. Ethan followed her silently, observing, learning, and sometimes pointing out hazards he noticed. After a while, they came to a small shelter built from twisted metal and stones. Lyra entered first, checking for signs of danger. Satisfied, She gestured for Ethan to follow. Inside, the air was warm, though it smelled faintly of smoke. There were supplies here, canned food, some water, a few medical items. Not much, but enough to survive a few days. "You have been hiding here long?" Ethan asked quietly. Lyra shrugged. "Long enough to know how little the world offers those who are alone." "How long have you been out there, human?" "Long enough to know how little the world offers those who are unprepared," Ethan said, smiling faintly. There was something about the simplicity of his words that made Lyra pause. Usually, humans tried to impress with fancy talk or bold claims. This one was honest. Lyra pulled out a small device from her pack. It was old, damaged, and clearly handmade. "This is all I have left of my people's technology," she said. "It can protect us a little, but not from the Syndicate. They have machines far beyond this." Ethan took the device carefully. He examined it with interest, turning it over in his hands. "I can fix this," he said. "I've worked on old tech before. Maybe I can make it better." Lyra's eyes widened. "You can?" "I can try," he said. "No promises, but I know a few things humans learned about fixing machines." For the first time in weeks, Lyra felt a small spark of hope. Maybe this human stranger was not just a curiosity. Maybe he could be a lifeline. But hope was dangerous. She reminded herself of the broken promise that haunted her, the ally who abandoned them, leaving her people to die. Trusting again was not easy. "Listen carefully," she said. "If you fail, we die. I cannot let you make mistakes. Do you understand?" Ethan nodded. "I understand. I'll be careful." They worked together on the device for hours. Ethan's hands were steady, precise. Lyra watched, fascinated, as he connected wires and adjusted circuits. Slowly, the device began to hum with new energy. It was not perfect, but it was stronger than before. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. "You did this?" she asked, unable to hide her surprise. "I did," Ethan said. "It's not much, but it's a start." Lyra nodded. She realized that maybe humans could be useful allies. Not all of them were selfish or cruel. Maybe some could fight for others, not just themselves. Night fell over the ruined city, but the shelter was warm. Lyra and Ethan sat across from each other, sharing a small meal of canned food and water. Words were few, but a silent understanding grew between them. Both were alone in a world that had been harsh and unforgiving. But together, they had a chance. As the night deepened, Lyra thought about her broken vow. The promise that had failed and cost so much. She had trusted before and been betrayed. But now, faced with this human, she felt a flicker of something she had not felt in a long time. Possibility. Perhaps the future could be different. Perhaps survival did not have to be lonely. Suddenly, a distant sound broke the quiet. A low rumble. Faint, but growing. Lyra's heart leapt into her throat. She motioned for Ethan to follow her outside. They crouched behind a pile of rubble, watching as a group of Syndicate scouts moved through the streets. They were lightly armored, but fast and efficient. They carried weapons that could kill from a distance in seconds. "We have to move," Lyra whispered. "They are close. Too close." Ethan nodded, gripping the repaired device. "Lead the way." They ran through narrow alleys, jumping over debris and ducking under fallen beams. Lyra's knowledge of the city's hidden paths allowed them to evade the scouts for a time. But she knew this was only temporary. The Syndicate's reach was long, and they would not give up easily. Finally, they reached an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. It was massive, with broken machinery and high ceilings. Lyra led Ethan to a small control room, overlooking the main floor. From here, they could see anyone who entered and plan their next move. "This will have to be our base for now," Lyra said. "We cannot stay in the city. Too many eyes, too many enemies." Ethan looked around the room, taking in the broken machinery and the quiet shadows. "It's safe enough for tonight," he said. "We can figure out tomorrow." Lyra nodded. She felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in weeks, she felt that survival was possible. Not because the world had changed, but because she had found someone who could help her navigate it, someone who might be trustworthy. As they settled in, Lyra allowed herself to think about the future. The broken vow of the past still haunted her, but maybe this human, Ethan, could help her write a new story. One not of betrayal, but of hope, trust, and survival. Outside, the wind howled through the ruins, carrying the distant cries of the syndicate. But inside the abandoned factory, two unlikely allies prepared for what lay ahead. The world was dangerous, full of enemies and broken promises, but together, they might just survive. And in that moment, Lyra realized that her fate was no longer entirely in her own hands. It hung, in part, on a human stranger, a stranger who had the skills, the courage, and perhaps the heart to help her reclaim her world. The morning sun barely pierced through the gray clouds above the ruined planet. Lyra woke first, her sharp eyes scanning the dark corners of the abandoned factory. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound was a warning. She had learned long ago that danger never slept. Ethan was still asleep, curled in a corner with the device he had repaired lying beside him. He looked peaceful, almost human in his rest, but Lyra knew it would not last. The syndicate was still out there, searching, watching, waiting. She quietly moved to the small control room that overlooked the factory floor. From here, she could see the broken machinery and the entrances. Her mind worked quickly, mapping escape routes, potential hiding places, and places to set traps. Even though she was tired, she knew rest was a luxury she could not afford. After a few minutes, Ethan stirred. His eyes opened slowly, and he rubbed his face. "Morning," he said quietly, noticing Lyra standing near the window. "Morning," she replied. "We have work to do. The syndicate will not give up easily. We need to be ready." Ethan nodded. "I'll help. What do you need me to do?" Lyra handed him a small map of the city ruins she had drawn from memory. "I need you to study this. We will need to move quickly if scouts find us. There are hidden paths, but you need to know them, as well as I do." Ethan leaned over the map, tracing his finger along the narrow alleys and broken streets. "I can do this," he said. "I've been in tricky situations before. I can learn fast." Tricky. Lyra studied him for a moment. Trust was hard, and she had been betrayed too many times to give it freely. But she sensed that Ethan was different. He was careful, observant, and most importantly, he listened. Perhaps humans could surprise her. They spent the morning planning. Lyra explained the areas most dangerous for patrols, the streets where traps could be set, and where the remnants of her people might hide. Ethan asked questions, not many, but the right ones. He was curious but not reckless. By midday, they had made a simple but effective plan. If the syndicate scouts came close, they would use the factory's broken machinery as cover and create a distraction. Ethan would use the repaired device to interfere with the syndicate's sensors, giving them a chance to escape. Lyra would lead, and he would follow. As they prepared, Lyra thought about her people, the ones who had been lost. She felt a mix of anger and sorrow. The syndicate had destroyed so much, and yet the world continued, as if their suffering meant nothing. But with Ethan's help, maybe they could fight back. A sudden sound interrupted her thoughts. The hum of machinery outside the factory, faint but unmistakable. Lyra's heart jumped. Scouts. Close ones. She grabbed a small weapon from her pack and motioned for Ethan to follow her to the main floor. They crouched behind broken metal beams, waiting. Shadows moved in the distance. A small group of Syndicate scouts appeared, their black armor reflecting the weak sunlight. They moved carefully, searching for any sign of survivors. Lyra's hands tightened around her weapon. "Remember the plan," she whispered to Ethan. "We don't fight unless we have to." Ethan nodded, gripping the device in his hands. He was calm, but Lyra could see the tension in his jaw. He was ready. As the scouts approached, Ethan activated the device. A low hum filled the air, and suddenly, the scouts' sensors went haywire. Lights blinked, and their communication devices crackled with static. Confused, the scouts paused, trying to figure out what had happened. "That's our chance," Lyra whispered. They moved quickly, staying low and using the broken machinery for cover. The scouts were close, but they did not see Lyra and Ethan slipping past them. Once they were clear, Lyra led Ethan through narrow alleys and over broken bridges. The city was dangerous, but she knew it better than anyone. Ethan followed closely, moving silently, trusting her lead. After several tense minutes, they reached a small underground passage. Lyra opened a hidden hatch and gestured for Ethan to go down first. He hesitated for a moment, then followed. The passage was dark and narrow, but it offered safety for now. They emerged in an abandoned storage area far from the city center. Dust covered everything, and broken crates were scattered around. Lyra let out a small sigh of relief. "We're safe here for the moment," she said. Ethan set the device down on a crate and examined it again. "This thing is incredible," he said. "It's simple, but effective. We can use it to protect ourselves more than just for today." Lyra nodded. "We will need it. The Syndicate will not stop. They want control of everything, and they will come back stronger." For the next few hours, they worked together, repairing more devices and setting simple traps. Ethan's hands were steady, and his mind quick. Lyra found herself impressed, and for the first time in a long while, she felt something she had not allowed herself to feel: hope. As night fell, the underground storage area grew cold. Lyra and Ethan sat together, eating a small meal from the supplies Lyra had scavenged. Words were few, but their shared silence was comfortable. "Why are you helping me?" Lyra asked finally. Ethan looked up, chewing slowly. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said. "I've seen too many people hurt, because no one cared. If I can help, I will." Lyra studied him. His words were simple, but there was honesty in them. She had been betrayed before by those who promised protection, but Ethan seemed different. He did not promise grand things, only that he would act. Perhaps that was enough. Suddenly, a faint noise reached their ears, a distant explosion, followed by shouting. Lyra tensed. The Syndicate had discovered something in the city. She grabbed her weapon and moved toward the exit, Ethan following. They emerged into the night air and saw smoke rising in the distance. The city was under attack again. Lyra's heart sank, but she did not hesitate. She led Ethan toward the source of the noise, moving quickly but cautiously. As they approached, they saw a group of civilians trapped under collapsed buildings. Syndicate patrols were moving through the streets, searching for survivors. Lyra felt a surge of anger. She had lost so much already, and now more innocents were in danger. "We have to help them," she said to Ethan. He nodded. "Lead the way. I'll follow." Together, they moved into the city, using the shadows and broken structures for cover. Lyra's knowledge of the terrain allowed them to avoid the patrols. She directed Ethan to lift debris and help the trapped civilians. Despite his smaller frame, Ethan was strong and careful, and he managed to free several people without causing more damage. The civilians looked at them with fear and hope mixed in their eyes. Lyra realized that they had become more than just survivors. They had become protectors. and for the first time, she felt a sense of responsibility not just for herself, but for others. As they led the civilians to safety, they were spotted by a syndicate scout. The alarm was raised. Lyra grabbed her weapon and moved to confront the scout, but Ethan acted quickly. He activated the device again, sending a pulse that disrupted the scout's equipment. Confused, the scout stumbled, allowing Lyra to subdue him. Once the immediate threat was gone, they continued moving. Lyra noticed that Ethan was adapting quickly, learning from her and using his own skills to help. She realized that humans could be clever in ways she had not expected. Perhaps that was why her people had once trusted some humans before being betrayed. They reached a safe building on the edge of the city. It was small, with sturdy walls and few windows. Lyra ushered the civilians inside, setting up simple barricades to protect them. Ethan checked the device one more time, ensuring it was ready if they were attacked again. As they settled for the night, Lyra allowed herself a moment to reflect. She had been alone for so long, trusting no one. Now, she had a human beside her, who was not only willing to help, but also capable. She could not ignore the feeling that this was the start of something new, something that might give her people a chance to survive and fight back. Ethan noticed her deep in thought. "You're thinking a lot tonight," he said. Lyra gave a small smile. "I'm thinking about the future. And for the first time, in a long time, I'm not afraid." Ethan nodded. "That's good. Fear can slow you down. But hope makes you stronger." Lyra considered his words. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps trust, carefully given, could become a weapon as strong as any device or weapon of war. And in a world where betrayal had left scars too deep to count, that trust was precious. Outside, the wind whispered through the broken city, carrying with it the sounds of a world still in chaos. But inside the small, safe building, Lyra and Ethan prepared for the days ahead. Together, they would face ambushes, danger, and the syndicate itself. Together, they would learn to rely on each other, building a bond stronger than fear or betrayal. For now, they rested. But in their hearts, both knew that survival was only the beginning. They had a fight ahead of them, one that would test courage, loyalty, and the strength of their unlikely alliance. And in that fight, perhaps the fate of many would be changed not by the syndicate, not by betrayal, but by a human and an alien, standing together against impossible odds. The city was quiet for a moment, but the silence felt heavy. Lyra could feel it in her bones. The syndicate was planning something. They had already attacked twice today, and it would not stop. She checked the device Ethan had repaired. Its low hum reassured her. They were not alone in this fight. Not completely. Ethan stood nearby, scanning the streets through a broken window. His eyes were alert, and his hands rested on the device. "Do you think they will come back tonight?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "Not just tonight. They will return with more soldiers. And they will not be careful this time. We have to be ready for anything." They spent the next hours fortifying the small safe house. Broken furniture became barricades. Rusty metal sheets covered the windows. Ethan used his knowledge of machines to rig simple alarms that would alert them if anyone tried to enter. Lyra showed him how to move silently, how to hide in shadows, and how to strike quickly if needed. By evening, the sun was gone, leaving the world in darkness. Lyra and Ethan crouched in the corner, listening. A faint sound carried through the wind, the soft clank of boots against metal. The syndicate scouts were close. "They are coming," Lyra whispered. Ethan nodded, gripping the device tightly. "We will be ready." The scouts moved slowly, confident. They did not know the building had been reinforced, nor that the two inside were prepared. As they reached the outer walls, the alarms Ethan had set off rang, loud and sharp. The scouts froze, confused, their communication devices crackling. Lyra took a deep breath. "Stay close to me," she said. They slipped out through a side exit, moving quickly through the shadows. Lyra led Ethan to a narrow alley, where the scouts could not follow easily. They ran silently, jumping over debris and ducking under broken beams. For a moment, it felt like they could escape without trouble. But then they heard shouting ahead. A group of Syndicate soldiers had found a small group of Lyra's people. They were unarmed, trapped under rubble, and surrounded. Lyra's heart pounded. She could not let them die. "We have to help them," she said. Ethan looked at her. "I'll follow your lead." Together, they moved into the open, using the shadows for cover. Ethan activated the device, sending a pulse that disrupted the soldiers' weapons for a few seconds. It was enough. Lyra ran forward, grabbing 2 soldiers and pushing them into the debris. She struck quickly, disabling them before they could react. Ethan helped lift rubble off the trapped civilians. His hands were strong and steady, careful not to hurt anyone. Lyra watched him, surprised by how efficient and calm he was under pressure. She realized that humans could be clever in ways she had not expected. Perhaps that was why her people had once trusted some humans before being betrayed. They freed the civilians one by one, guiding them into a narrow side street where the Syndicate could not easily follow. Lyra kept her weapon ready, scanning for more enemies, while Ethan checked the device, keeping it active to confuse any approaching soldiers. After they were all safe, Lyra turned to Ethan. "We need to move. They will send reinforcements." Ethan nodded. "Where to?" Lyra led them to an old underground tunnel system she had discovered years ago. It was dangerous, narrow, and dark, but it provided a hidden route out of the city. They moved carefully, one behind the other, the civilians following. As they reached a wider tunnel, Lyra paused. "We have to split up," she said. "I will take half of the civilians through one path, and you take the others through another. It will slow them down if they chase us." Ethan hesitated. "I'm not leaving you alone." "One." Lyra shook her head. "You have to. It's the only way to protect more people. Trust me." Ethan studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, let's do it." They split the group. Lyra led her half quickly and silently, moving through the shadows. She could hear the distant sounds of pursuit, but the narrow tunnels and sudden turns kept the Syndicate soldiers confused. Meanwhile, Ethan guided the other half, using the device to disrupt sensors and alarms. He moved quietly, speaking softly, to calm the frightened civilians. It was not easy, but his calm presence kept them from panicking. After what felt like hours, both groups reached a hidden exit far from the city. The night air was cold and sharp, but they were safe for now. Lyra and Ethan reunited, relieved to see each other unharmed. "You did well," Lyra said quietly. "So did you," Ethan replied. Lyra nodded, but she knew this was not the end. The Syndicate would not stop. They would come back with more soldiers, more weapons, and more danger. But for now, they had survived, and that gave them a chance to plan their next move. They set up a small camp in the ruins outside the city. Firelight flickered against the walls, casting long shadows. The civilians were exhausted but safe, resting for the first time in days. Lyra and Ethan sat together, discussing their next steps. "We need to strike back," Lyra said. "We cannot keep running forever. The Syndicate is too strong, but if we can find their main base, we can disrupt their operations." Ethan nodded. "I can help. I've worked on machines and traps before. Maybe I can find a way to weaken them from the inside." Lyra studied him. Trusting him completely was still hard, but she could see that he was willing to risk his life for others. That was rare. That was valuable. "We will need a plan," she said. "A good one. One mistake and everyone dies." Ethan smiled faintly. "I like plans. Let's make one." They spent the night preparing. Lyra shared everything she knew about the Syndicate's movements and technology. Ethan suggested ways to use her knowledge along with his machines. Together, they drew maps, marked safe paths, and set simple traps. By morning, they were ready. Lyra felt a strange mixture of fear and determination. She had been betrayed before, left to survive alone. But now she had a human beside her. Someone who could fight, think, and adapt. Perhaps survival was not enough. Perhaps they could win. Their first step was to reach a small outpost where Lyra's closest ally, Kira, had been captured. Kira was a skilled fighter and strategist, and her loss had been a blow to Lyra's people. Rescuing her would not only save a friend but also strengthen their chances against the Syndicate. The journey was tense. They moved through forests and broken roads, avoiding patrols and scouting ahead carefully. Ethan's device helped them navigate, masking their presence and interfering with any sensors. Lyra guided them with precision, showing paths that only someone who knew the land could see. When they finally reached the outpost, it was heavily guarded. Soldiers patrolled the perimeter, and the gates were reinforced. Lyra crouched behind a rock, studying the situation. "We cannot rush in," she whispered. "We need to be smart." Ethan nodded, adjusting the device. "I can create a distraction," he said. "It will confuse their guards for a short time." Lyra agreed. They waited until nightfall, then moved into position. Ethan activated the device, sending a pulse that caused alarms to blare and lights to flicker. The guards were momentarily disoriented. Lyra seized the moment, slipping past them with her small group. They reached the cells where Kira was held. Lyra picked the lock quickly, using skills she had learned long ago. Kira's eyes widened as she recognized her friend. "Lyra?" she whispered. "We don't have time," Lyra said. "We need to move. Follow me." Kira nodded, grabbing her weapon. Ethan led the civilians and the freed ally through a narrow escape route he had discovered. Together, they moved quickly, using shadows and the chaos caused by the device to evade the Syndicate guards. Once they were safe, Lyra allowed herself a small smile. Kira was alive, and their group had grown stronger. But Lyra knew the Syndicate would not stop. They had seen too much, and their leader would want revenge. Ethan noticed her expression. "You're worried," he said. Lyra nodded. "We are not safe yet. This is only the beginning. We need to be ready for their next attack." Ethan put a hand on her shoulder. "Then we will be ready. Together." Lyra looked at him, realizing that he meant it. This human stranger had risked everything to save her people, to fight beside her. For the first time, she felt that maybe humans could be trusted. Not all of them, but this one. Maybe this one could make a difference. They set up camp for the night in a hidden valley. The freed civilians rested, and Kira checked the group for injuries. Ethan repaired the device one more time, ensuring it would work when needed. Lyra kept watch, her eyes scanning the dark horizon. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faint sound of distant engines. The Syndicate was still out there, and their next move would come soon. But for now, Lyra felt something she had not felt in a long time. Determination. They had survived impossible odds, rescued an ally, and grown stronger together. And in that strength, she found hope. Hope that the future could be different. Hope that trust, carefully given, could become a weapon against betrayal. Hope that together, a human and an alien could stand against a powerful enemy and perhaps even change the course of their world. The valley was quiet, but the tension was heavy. Lyra sat on a rock, staring at the distant mountains. The Syndicate's main forces were moving closer every hour. She could feel it in the air, the machines, the soldiers, the sense of control they always carried. She knew their attack would come soon. And this time, There would be no warning. Ethan was beside her, adjusting the repaired device. Its low hum filled the silence, a small but comforting reminder that they had some advantage. "Do you think they know where we are?" he asked quietly. Lyra shook her head. "They might suspect, but they won't find us here easily. This valley is hidden, but they will come. They always come." Ethan studied the valley, thinking carefully. "Then we need to prepare. Not just hide. We need to fight." Lyra nodded. She had spent too long running, too long hiding. If they wanted to survive and protect others, they had to stand and fight. The next hours were a blur of preparation. Lyra and Kira taught the civilians how to hide, how to move silently, and how to help in small ways carry supplies, check traps, and stay alert. Ethan worked tirelessly on the device, making it stronger and more versatile. They set alarms, built simple barricades, and placed hidden traps along the likely paths of attack. As night fell, the valley was quiet, almost peaceful. But Lyra knew that the calm was only temporary. The syndicate would strike with full force, and the battle would decide the fate of her people. From the top of a hill, Lyra could see the faint glow of approaching lights. The syndicate had found them. She felt a rush of fear, but she pushed it down. Fear could paralyze, but courage could protect. And tonight, they would need all the courage they had. "Everyone in position," she whispered. "When they come, stay hidden. Follow the plan. Trust each other." Ethan activated the device fully. It sent out pulses that interfered with sensors and communication signals. Lights flickered in the distance, and Lyra saw the confusion in the approaching forces. This was their chance. The first wave of syndicate soldiers moved into the valley. They were careful, methodical, and heavily armed. Lyra signaled Kira, who led the civilians to hidden positions, ready to support if needed. Lyra and Ethan stayed at the center, ready to strike. The soldiers did not see them, but they could feel the tension in the air. Suddenly, Ethan activated a small device he had rigged earlier. A loud hum and flashes of light erupted from the valley floor, confusing the soldiers and forcing them to slow down. "Now!" Lyra shouted. They moved with precision, striking quickly and retreating before the soldiers could respond. Her weapon was sharp, her aim perfect. Kira helped lead the civilians to attack supply lines and create distractions. Ethan's devices caused chaos, making the syndicate soldiers unsure of their numbers and direction. The battle grew intense. Explosions and alarms filled the valley. Lyra moved with speed, guiding attacks, helping her people, and watching Ethan work. He was calm under pressure, setting traps, guiding the civilians, and using his devices to create openings. Lyra realized that human ingenuity was remarkable. He could think of things she had never imagined, finding weaknesses in the syndicate's forces that she alone could not see. Hours passed. The syndicate regrouped, trying to push forward. But every attack met resistance. Lyra saw the determination in her people's eyes. They were no longer just survivors. They were fighters. And together with Ethan, they became a force that the syndicate had not expected. At one point, a heavy explosion rocked the valley, throwing Lyra off balance. Soldiers charged toward a trapped group of civilians. Without hesitation, Ethan ran ahead, using the device to disable weapons and sensors. Lyra followed, her weapon cutting through the chaos. Together, they rescued the civilians, forcing the syndicate soldiers back. Breathing heavily, Lyra looked at Ethan. "You saved them!" she shouted over the noise. Ethan shrugged, smiling faintly. "We saved them. Together." Lyra felt something she had not felt in a long time: trust. Not the cautious kind, not the forced kind, but real trust. This human had risked everything to fight alongside her, not for glory, not for reward, but because it was right. The battle continued into the night. Lyra and Ethan coordinated with Kira and the civilians, using clever strategies to outmaneuver the syndicate. They used the valley's terrain to their advantage, forcing the soldiers into traps and narrow passes where they could be controlled. As dawn approached, the syndicate made a final push. Their leader, a tall figure in dark armor, appeared at the edge of the valley, directing attacks. Lyra felt her heart tighten. This was the moment that would decide everything. Ethan placed the device in a strategic location. "This is it," he said. "Once I activate it, they won't know where we are or what we're doing. It's our chance to end this." Lyra nodded. She gathered her strength, her people, and her resolve. "Do it," she said. The device emitted a strong pulse, interfering with the syndicate's communications and machines. Confusion spread among their forces. Soldiers stumbled, weapons misfired, and the leader shouted orders that could not be followed. Lyra seized the moment. She led a direct attack on the leader's position, moving quickly, striking accurately, and using the terrain for cover. Kira and the civilians followed, surrounding the enemy and cutting off escape routes. Ethan joined her, using the device to disable reinforcements and create openings. The leader tried to fight back, but Lyra's strategy and human ingenuity were too much. She moved with speed and precision, forcing the leader to retreat. Finally, the syndicate's forces began to fall back, disorganized and confused. Lyra and Ethan pushed them further, driving them out of the valley. The battle was won, but the cost had been high. Many of Lyra's people were injured, and the valley was filled with smoke and debris. Lyra sank to the ground, exhausted but relieved. Ethan sat beside her, checking the device one last time. "We did it," he said quietly. Lyra nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, we did. Together." Kira approached, smiling. "You both were incredible. I never thought we could fight like this and win. But you showed us what was possible." Sum of 9. Song 40 Pos. Lyra looked at Ethan. "You showed me too. Humans can be more than I imagined. They can be brave, clever, and kind." Ethan smiled. "And aliens can be strong, determined, and smart. Together, we can face anything." The valley was quiet again. But this time, it was different. The fear had lifted, replaced by hope. Lyra looked around at her people, seeing their courage and resilience. She realized that the world could be changed, not by power or fear, but by trust, courage, and working together. As the sun rose, casting warm light over the valley, Lyra and Ethan stood together, ready to help rebuild. They had survived impossible odds, fought a powerful enemy, and formed a bond that could not be broken. The syndicate would return someday, she knew. But now, she was not afraid. She had allies, friends, and a human who had risked everything for her people. Together, they could face the future, no matter what it held. Lyra looked at Ethan, a small smile on her face. "Thank you," she said simply. Ethan nodded. "We saved each other," he said. And in that moment, Lyra knew that hope was real, trust was powerful, and together, they could survive anything. The valley was no longer just a place of hiding. It was a place of strength, courage, and new beginnings. Lyra's fate was no longer tied to betrayal or broken promises. It hung, instead, on trust, friendship, and the bravery of a human who had stood beside her when the world was against them. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Lyra felt ready to face it. Not alone, not afraid, and not broken. Together, human and alien, they would build a new world.